The primary purpose of Innovative AAC Solutions, the podcast, is to educate and inform. The views expressed during all episodes are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute educational or medical advice. They are not necessarily the views of Special School District of St. Louis County.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 2 with Innovative AAC Solutions, the podcast with Laura Hayes and
Cheryl Livingston.
We missed you guys. Cheryl, I missed you.
I was going to say, how can this feel like it's been forever and a day since we've done this? It hasn't. It's only been a few months. Well, I guess it's been longer than we thought because Miss Laura over here had to take a little extra time than the rest of us got this summer because she birthed the baby.
I did. I can't believe she's 5 months old. Little Esther Rose.
She's
I'm sure
adorable.
We'll have many stories, many stories about her to come.
Wes is getting pushed aside. Esther's taking over. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. They're so different. Everybody says that kids are a night and day different, and my kids they fit the mold to the T.
already.
Yeah. So
anyway, it has been a long time, and we were releasing podcasts, but you're right. The actual physical doing this has been a long time. So I'm so happy to be back.
We're happy to be back, and they renewed us. Isn't that? I mean, we missed you guys. It sounds like you missed us.
Yeah, that little extra. We were like, so please, 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 and they said okay. So yeah, no, it's good.
And we're really excited for the season because we have a fantastic lineup of AAC gurus and people doing some amazing, innovative things in the district, outside the district,
everywhere. Yes.
And something I've loved, Cheryl, throughout this whole process is I've reached out to several people and no one has said no. Like everybody, this is just such a great platform to share information, such a great media to get things out there. So, I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to share it with everybody. Everybody listening.
No, podcasting is a phenomenon now. I mean, it's like when you first mentioned doing a podcast, I said, for what is this? What are you speaking of? And so now it's like everybody does it. So yes,
now
I am so
one
happy that
me.
I know. I've kind of taken over. But yeah, the idea that there's so much information. In fact, we were just talking the other day about, professional development and conferences, and that's still wonderful. But I am learning a lot through people just chatting. So I think that this is my favorite thing right now is just to listen. And sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't, but I love just listening. So yes.
It's so much easier to digest. Yeah. You just, they say you can only take away 3 things from a training. And when you listen to, a 30 to 60 minute podcast, I feel like you can digest that and take it back. And that's usually, we try to make it practical. So hopefully we'll get
you can listen again if you weren't paying attention. So
right. Or if your clientele changes, right? Like if you suddenly have a kiddo on your caseload that's new to you that has CVI, like go back and listen to it. Go back and listen to the PECS episode. Go back and listen to the distance learning resource episode.
Yes.
It's all right
there.
Point. Yeah. All on our website. Yeah. So we will definitely share the link to our AAC website just for anybody who's a new listener. It's our go-to for all of our resources. It's where the podcast lives for old episodes. As a reminder, you can get continuing education for any episode you listen to. You would just
old ones included.
You would just email Cheryl and you can get her certificate of completion. And we just can't wait to share some more knowledge. So speaking of knowledge, Cheryl, it's been a while. What fun find do you have this week?
All right. So it is the beginning of the school year. So Happy New Year. It's not the beginning of the calendar year, but just in case you weren't already thinking of it, I want to remind you that Saltillo, here's the front of it. Saltillo every year has produced and sent out calendars. So again, every month there's different books they're highlighting. There's different activities to do. So yes, paper calendar, wonderful. We have some. If you need one, we can get one to you. But just also go to their website, saltillo.com, and under their resources, and I'm going to show it to you on my phone here, they have implementation is one of their tabs up at the top. And then they have a thing called Chat Corner. And again, it just drops down from implementation. And what I want to show you is that you can do the actual calendar, which is right there waiting for you. But then they have like fun things to do. So I wanted to point out Of course, I did this ahead of time, and now I don't know where it's at. There it
Okay,
is.
but Cheryl, you know what I'm thinking? Those physical calendars are so cool. I think we should give them away to some listeners. What do you think?
Ooh, that's a great
Maybe
idea.
you let us know that you're listening. You comment in the video below or email
Yeah.
us, and we will throw your name in and we will do a drawing, and 5 listeners will get a physical calendar by the end of September.
Wonderful.
Let's do that.
Well, that's a great deal. Even again, if you get the calendar, I want you to notice that like down here at the bottom, there's a QR code. So they've even made it simpler than me telling you how to get there. But there's a QR code right there. I clicked on that. That took me to the site. But I wanted to show you that, again, the calendar, the dates, all that good stuff. But if you just keep scrolling, and it's hard to see with my light here, but if you just keep scrolling, there's all kinds of activities you can print. They have, the one thing was an opposites bingo. So here's the boards. Again, you click on it, print it, save it to your drive, however you want to manage it, but it's there just waiting for you. So I think sometimes we get busy and forget, especially, when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, well, maybe I should wait till next year. It's like, no, you still have September, October, November, December, and then you'll be ready for the 2022 calendar. But take advantage of that right away, because that's going to be good stuff for you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And again, not having to reinvent the wheel. It's all right there. You use a QR code. Love my QR codes. Well, mine is a little bit similar in the sense that we're starting a school year and, we get back into the swing of things, and I'm constantly creating my own checklist of like, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And the wonderful Emily Diaz, who is an SLP, created this fantastic AAC checklist for back to school. So I'm going to quickly share my screen so that you can see what that looks like, because it is a phenomenal resource.
So what's nice about this that Laura's going to show is, again, it's easy for you just to have handy. You can glance at it and see what you've already done or what you still need to do. So I think sometimes, again, because we're busy, we get sidetracked and it's hard to keep up.
Exactly. So beginning of the year checklist. So what it does is you can go through your current inventory to figure out who is actually using AAC. And you can figure out how they're using AAC, because we know that there's various levels of using AAC. Matching the device.
Probably inherited new kids, new settings, new things that are going on.
Yep. Matching the physical equipment with the chargers, the bags, all of that. Who might need AAC. So who are your new kids that might need, or needs have changed, how we meet those needs, what new staff have come into the building, what parents' needs might be. And then some of the other areas that I really like and get excited about are making sure everyone has a light tech backup system. I've really been diving into light tech over the summer, and so I really love this idea of having light tech and just being able, we know it's going to die. We know we're going to need backups. And so it's just going to be so helpful to have those on hand. And then the growth check, right? Like how many of our kids need their straps adjusted because they've grown 4 inches, or their mounts readjusted because we know their positioning has changed. So we do all these things. Or I had two staff reached out to me and said, this voice seems really immature. And the kid was in high school. And I was like, oh yeah, we definitely need to drop that voice in that register. So all the things to think about. So just kind of use that as you see fit when you're ready, and kind of go through your kids and make sure you're doing all these things. It's just a quick little checklist and a reminder for back to school.
It's great visual. Adults need visuals too, by the way. So I think that's a great reminder.
Exactly. So topic for today, we are starting this season off with a bang. For those of you who have been in the AAC field for a while, we have the amazing, the wonderful Rachel Madel. She is an SLP who's been doing, speaking of innovative things, some really innovative things. She's super passionate about AAC, and she is one of the co-hosts of Talking with Tech, the podcast. So one of the reasons we kind of got into this, right, Cheryl?
I was going to say that was like my first one. Yeah. First time I'd listened to a podcast was theirs.
Yeah. So Rachel is going to be talking with me in an interview about collaborating with outside providers. And she's got a really unique perspective and some really great resources to share to kind of help streamline it for all of those staff that are working to kind of help carry over skills with other providers in the community as well as at home.
Can't wait to hear it. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Yeah. So without further ado, here's our interview with Rachel Madel.
Hi guys, welcome back. And we are here today with the wonderful Rachel Madel. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Laura, I'm so excited to be here.
So for those of you who don't know, Rachel is amazing, wonderful in the field. Rachel, can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background?
Absolutely. So I am a speech language pathologist. I own a private practice in Los Angeles. I'm from the East Coast originally, though. I feel like I always have to buffer that because I'm an East Coast girl at heart who just happened to be on the West Coast. But I have been out on the West Coast for 7 years now. And I'm just really interested in how we can use technology to support communication. I do a lot of work with AAC in my practice, but also just assistive technology in general. I've always kind of geeked out on technology and how it can be so useful, and honestly a game changer for a lot of the kids that I work with. And so I do a lot of presenting on the topic. I have a podcast called Talking with Tech, which is all about AAC, and Chris Bouguet is my co-host on that podcast. We've had amazing people on, yourself included, Laura. So it's been super fun. But I feel like because of the podcast, especially, I've kind of done a deep dive in AAC. We're kind of on the pulse of what's the latest and greatest, which is super cool. And because of it, I feel like I've learned so much more about AAC. It's super interesting to hear about everyone's perspectives. And we've had amazing researchers on, clinicians, AAC users themselves. And so it's really helped to kind of guide my career in a lot of ways. I've kind of done a lot of different things and down a lot of different rabbit holes in our field, AAC being one of them. But I feel like AAC I'm just super passionate about. And so kind of sharing the information that I have, working with the kids that I work with, and trying to make a bigger impact and teach a lot of clinicians, because I think it's an area of overwhelm for so many educators and parents. And so it's like, how can I break down these things and try to make it a little more easy to digest?
Yes, exactly. And I think we've referenced you guys at least a half a dozen times on the podcast because you always have amazing guests. You always have such great insight and practical stories and application. So thank you for doing that, first of all. And second of all, just thinking about your experience working with clinicians, working with families, the topic for today is just community collaboration. So tell us a little bit about your experience and your history with collaborating specifically with schools and, again, having that triangle of schools with families. Kind of talk about that a little bit and historically and what you guys do now.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because it's kind of twofold. One, unfortunately, a lot of the people who come to me in my practice, families, they've hit a wall with their school team. And so that looks like I know that my child would be good with AAC, but they're not giving it to them at school because they said they're not ready. That's a very common thing that happens. So it's not always that. Sometimes families are just looking for at-home support. Sometimes it feels like AAC is not working, and so they come to me in my practice and say hey, we heard you're good with AAC, help us. And so it kind of just depends on what the situation is at hand. And so I feel like the first step is for me just figuring out, okay, what's the situation? Because, a school district who is telling, a family they're not ready yet for high-tech AAC, that's a very different collaboration and conversation than, this family is happy with everything that's happening at school. They just want some at-home support. And so I do a variety of different things. I also do assessments. So that is I'm a huge believer in team-based assessment. I have an entire course that I created all about team-based assessment called AAC Ally. And that really came from how do we make the selection of a tool a team decision? And what you do when you actually collaborate in a team, obviously it's good to get everyone's input. That's part of it. But you also get automatic buy-in when you have an entire team, because what you say is, what you're saying when you say, I want you to be a part of this team to make this decision is, I value your opinion, which I think is a cardinal rule to collaboration, making people feel like their opinion matters. And so, I talk a lot about this expert model of AAC and how we need to stop being experts in the classroom because it doesn't help anybody. It makes people feel like, oh, well, Rachel will fix everything. Rachel will do it, or AAC is not my thing. Like Rachel's going to do it, or Rachel knows what to do. And it just doesn't really serve, collaboration. It doesn't serve our students, because inevitably, if I'm the expert, but I can only come in once a month, like, what about the other, rest of the month where I'm not there? So really building capacity within teams is a lot of what I do. So, it kind of just depends. Like the collaborations are all very different, and it all kind of stems from a lot of like underlying foundational beliefs, sometimes being myths about AAC, like the one that I just talked about. Like you need to, oh, the child's not ready, like they don't have joint attention, or all the other things that we hear about why a child, isn't a good candidate for high-tech AAC. And so it's really like, for me, collaboration starts with just understanding where people are at and what they believe, because if I'm going to hope to change any beliefs or get any type of, productivity happening, I need to understand kind of what the roadblocks are, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I would love to kind of hear what other resources you have in regards to that team approach. Here, we use the SET framework by Joy Zabala, God rest her soul. And she was amazing in creating this framework that we can use as a team approach. But what we find quite often, or at least I can speak for myself as a facilitator, is that buy-in piece is so important. And when the student either transitions to a new school or the parents miss that first meeting, we don't have the buy-in. We've lost the buy-in, which is so crucial. And so then we're doing a reset. We're re-looking at it. We're re-looking at it from a team approach. And so we're almost starting at square one, because the team might be more comfortable with a different tool, or the team might not have the same knowledge set that we would want them to have for the system that the student's coming in with. So what other supports do you kind of lend themselves to what you do there?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, because we can talk about this through the lens of parents, right? Sometimes we got to get parents to buy in, and they're the ones that are like the roadblock, because it's like, oh, we think this device will be really good, and the parents are like, no, like my child's not going to use a device to communicate. Or we have the opposite. We have kind of the school team or a teacher or someone within the team at school who's, again, perhaps like blocking AAC or progress, or they're not doing, aided language input. There's a variety of things that can like kind of stop our kids from making progress. The first thing that I always do when I'm working with anybody new on a team is I say, if I could change one thing, if it's a teacher, I'm like, one thing in your classroom. If it's a parent, I'm like, one thing at home that would make your life a lot easier, what would it be? And sometimes it has nothing to do with communication. They're like, oh, like I wish he was potty trained. And I'm like, oh, I can help with that. Let's make some visual supports. Let's add, bathroom to the front page of the device. Let's work on that together. Because what that does is it shows a communication partner, it shows a team member that you care about helping them. And it not like coming in with an agenda, like, no, here's what we're doing, everybody, right? Like that's expert model. Like collaboration starts with, I care about what is happening in your classroom, and I'm here to make it better. I'm here to support you. You tell me what that looks like. Because once we build that trust with a team member, all of a sudden they're open to doing the things that we want them to do and need them to do. They're open to the things that we think are a priority. But if you come in like an expert and you start telling people what to do, you don't have that buy-in, you don't have that trust. And so that's the big question that I ask is like, what's the one thing I could change? Another question I like to ask is, what's your biggest challenge with AAC? Because that helps me troubleshoot. It's like, oh, well, like I never have a device around. I'm like, that's our roadblock, right? So I feel like I'm always playing detective to figure out what is blocking progress. And like I said, it could be a variety of things. And so it's my job kind of as the leader, I guess, of the team. I feel like I'm oftentimes the leader of the team because everyone's like, well, communications throughout every, part of the day. And Rachel's the expert at communication and the technology we're using to support communication. So I end up becoming kind of the leader. I also think it's probably just my disposition. I kind of like come in and I'm like, I am the leader, do what I say. But I feel like I have a lot of practice with kind of being this middleman because really what I do when I'm working with schools is I'm like the middleman between the parent and the school. And sometimes they're kind of at odds with each other. And so I'm like talking to the parent, like, your school team's really great. Like, and I'm talking to the school team. I'm like, you're doing a really great job. Like, and so it does feel like I'm kind of in the middle sometimes. But I feel like those are the things that I prioritize, is like just building a relationship with someone first. Because inevitably, like that connection is what leads to lots of different opportunities to do lots of different things. But, if someone's looking at you like, oh, like she's just here to give me more work, then like you're never going to get anywhere.
Right, exactly. And you hit on a really big component of what I think that we see at the schools with the parents, is that there's an active connection. When a parent takes somebody to a community provider, you get a recap, you could often observe them. It's a very involved, engaging conversation, and they can see the progress. When they're at school, they get reports or they get a piece of paper saying, here's what we worked on. I know that we're starting to shift that, and a lot of schools are starting to use things like Seesaw and taking some videos of like, here's what we did. And I think that's so much, it's more meaningful to the parents, and that buy-in and that feeling like I'm involved is there. Is there any other, I know you use videos a lot. Can you speak to the listeners about that a little bit and how that's successful?
Absolutely. So I use a tool called Loom, Loom, which I've talked about a lot in the speaking events I've done. I've also talked about on the podcast. There's lots of ones out there. There's Screencastify, there's Screencast-O-Matic. Basically, it's just a way to capture a short video. And what's nice is that typical videos you have to share through some type of medium because they're big files, right? Like Google Drive, Dropbox. What's nice about these tools, these online tools, is that it copies a link. You can password protect it. It's awesome. And the way that I use that is, I use it in a lot of different contexts. But one of the best ways to use it is for me to introduce myself to team members that don't know me. So, I'll send a message instead of sending an email. We all kind of send emails, and I'm like, this all stemmed from like getting too many emails in my inbox. I was like, there's too many emails. I don't have enough time. And writing an email takes a lot of energy. As you can tell, I'm a talker. Like I like to talk. I talk all the time. It's easy for me to communicate, some of these things. But I feel like video is so helpful because one, you can communicate a lot with a lot less energy and effort. And two, there's like a personal element to it. So like you said, it's not this piece of paper or this email in my inbox. And I'm like, who is this person? If I'm lucky, maybe I have like a picture of them at their signature. So I can like at least try to attach a face to the name. But the video is super helpful because one, that personal element's there. Somebody gets to see me. I'm talking to them. I can be excited. You can say like, I'm always like, hi, I'm really excited to collaborate with you. Like really looking forward to, scheduling a session where we can talk at, more length. Here's what I need from you, or here's what I'm interested in, or, whatever the, kind of action item is, you can communicate in a way that's not threatening and doesn't feel like extra work. Because I feel like how we say things matter. I can give an at-home exercise, but if I'm excited and you can hear that intonation in my voice, and I'm saying something like, oh, like I am super excited. Like we worked on this, during our session today, and I would love for you to practice, having him ask for the water at home, like his water bottle. That would be a really great thing to support the things that I'm doing in my sessions. That's a perfect example of how like a video is so much better than just like writing that all in an email. The other thing I love about videos, especially Loom, is that you copy it. So as soon as you hit end on the recording, it copies a link, and then you can paste it directly into an email, and it has like this GIF. So you can see me, and it's like, people always watch videos. When someone sends a video, you're like, what is this? And so that's another thing, is like, when you send this long email that's like, 7 paragraphs full of things, like people are like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. Like when I get emails like that, and I get them a lot, it's typically SLPs who are like, I had this one case that I don't know what to do. And so they give me all the background information. And I'm happy to help. But I have to say, when I get those emails, I'm like, I was like, I can't do this right now. Like I just like exit, and I'm like, I'll revisit later. So we don't have to be so overwhelming. And we can say a lot of what we need to say in a video. And so I just love using videos in that way. I also love using videos to show what I'm doing in my sessions for families who can't be there. I like to have team members take videos, and then I'll do coaching with them, watching those videos back with them. They're really great for an assessment. can you take a few videos of, how you're interacting with, this child at home? What does that look like? It doesn't have to be using AAC or anything. Just like, I want to see interaction. There's so many different ways to use video. And I just love it because it's really easy and you get so much information from a video that you just can't capture in an email.
And my aha while you were talking about that was that we talk about how our students process things differently, right? We've got visual learners, we've got auditory learners. We all process things differently. And when you send an email, you have to be able to visually process it and then hold on to that information. When you watch a video, you're getting auditory, you're getting visual, you're getting almost kinesthetic feedback because you're watching someone do something. And then you also have the context, right? So I can't tell you the number of times I get asked for implementation strategies and then they're not carried over. And it's because it's not seen in context of the student that they're working with. Whereas the videos that you're talking about the coaching supports that you're doing has the context of exactly what you're doing, the prompts and the strategies you're using to support. I think it's such a great strategy we could tap into.
I also think what's so nice about it is that there's a personal touch. Because I think what happens in the schools and even in my own private practice, I feel like inevitably we have to automate our systems because we literally have no time if we have 60 kids on our caseload. Like, we have to figure out ways to streamline some of our processes, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. Like, efficiency hacks, yes, sign me up.
Yeah, you have some great videos for that, or presentations for that.
I do. And actually, Chris and I, we did a AAC in the Cloud presentation years ago. It was called AAC and Productivity. And it's all like our strategies we use to be more efficient and productive. But kind of circling back, I feel like there's this personal element that's sometimes missing if we're sending just like, the same email template that we send to everybody as like a welcome. And it doesn't take that much time to just hop on and say, hey, like, I'm Rachel. I'm really excited. I'm, the AAC specialist who's going to be doing the assessment. I'm really looking forward to meeting whatever, so-and-so's insert name of child. And I'm really excited to collaborate with you. I'm going to keep you posted via email. And then that's it. Like, it's literally, it could be like 30 seconds. But all of a sudden it's like, there's a face to the name. People are more interested. People feel like, wow, she went out of her way to send me a video. Like, that's so great. It's kind of like having a phone call, but the nice thing about the video is that you don't have to schedule something. And then sometimes, we all know, we've been on phone calls with parents that go like 45 minutes and we're like, oh, like, I gotta go. Like, and so it's just nice. It's quick. And I feel like it adds that personal element that, again, like, gets people more bought into who you are. It's a relationship, and really, it's a relationship building strategy. And really, like, we need to build good relationships if we expect to, come together and collaborate with each other.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I did want to mention to the listeners. So if you guys haven't, I know we talked about this before, but if you haven't seen or looked at the AAC and the Cloud presentations, it's a totally free resource. And they actually the beautiful thing is they keep archives of previous years. So if you want to, I remember watching that, but I think I should go back again because I feel like now that I have 2 kids, I need more productivity hacks in my life.
I actually have to go back and watch it again because Chris shared some productivity things that I didn't even know about. And I was like, I was taking notes. I was taking notes during our presentation because I was like, wow, I've never thought about that. It's jam-packed with lots of productivity things. So yeah, I would definitely recommend going back and watching it.
The biggest thing I remember is that you guys didn't have enough time to share all the productivity hacks. I remember going, oh my gosh, I want more time. I wish this was a longer session.
I know.
So anyway, you guys can go back to aacinthecloud.com and they have all of those in previous years archived as well that you can watch. And I believe if you watch it on their website, you can get a certificate of education. So it's not ASHA approved, but you can get a certificate of education, which is great. And so thinking about, let's go back to thinking about videos and collaboration and kind of your process. What would you say are the biggest challenges or pitfalls that you see? What do you wish you could change?
So I think there's a few things. I think that it's just there's so much to learn when it comes to AAC. And so I think that that's part of the problem is, like, how do we teach in a way that really resonates? How do we perhaps automate some things, but some things can't be automated, right? So it's like that balancing act. So I think my biggest challenge is just I don't have enough time with the people that are communication partners for a child. And so it's like, what do I do with the time that I do have? So like oftentimes, like, for example, I'm on a case right now. The child, I think the district has granted 6 hours of AAC training. And I think we have like perhaps like an hour ongoing monthly with like, I think it's with the parent that I'm responsible for. So I'm thinking, okay, I have 6 hours. Like, what do I do with those 6 hours? And so I've gone through lots of different iterations of what I do with those 6 hours. At first I was like, oh, like I'll just do individual coaching. And then I'm like, well, I'm kind of like wasting a lot of time talking about these basic principles over and over again. So maybe I need to do a group thing. And maybe I need to teach about core words, or I need to teach about modeling. But what I found is, one, I always like to do kind of a initial meeting or two. I like 2 meetings, shorter and like at least 2, because inevitably I teach something and then there's some reflection, right? And then I can kind of circle back and there's more questions instead of kind of lumping it all together. And I used to have a plan, and now I do a little bit of upfront work figuring out what are the roadblocks? What are the challenges? Like, where are people at with this? What do they need support with? And so like I do some kind of guided teaching based on the student, based on what I think is the most important strategy. I know other, school districts, and Chris even talks about how in his school district, they have it very much like they think Ada language input is like the most important thing to teach about. And so everybody understands Ada language input. So that's a strategy too. Myself, especially because I work very individual, right? So like I'm working with a family and a specific child. And so the way I approach it is, okay, I know enough about this child to know what they need to make progress. So like, for example, maybe this child's completely overprompted and there's tons of modeling happening, but we're not giving enough space to actually have independent communication. So if I did a training on modeling, like that wouldn't really serve that student and that student's team, because that's not the issue. Mom's modeling, everyone's modeling, right? And, so it really just like tailoring to the specific child's needs, I think is helpful if you can do it. And then the second part of that is coaching. Like I have found the absolute most success with coaching. We can teach people all day long principles of AAC and strategies, but if we don't have someone with us as we're doing it, or asynchronously coaching us and helping us reflect back on what we did and what we would change and all of these kind of coaching strategies, then, we're definitely not going to make as much progress. I like to kind of think about, like, when I'm working with communication partners, I'm really trying to teach them to be speech language pathologists, to think like a speech language pathologist. And that just takes practice, and it takes kind of that coaching element, which is not always easy to coordinate and do, but if you can do it, it makes by far the most impact on a child.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a wonderful resource for free on your website, rachelmadel.com. We can put that in the notes for the show, but it has a coaching bundle where you can look at the checklist of the skills that you would want a communication partner to be aware of. And then, like you said, giving them that input. And now in the world of asynchronous learning, we can create those short videos. We can link them to things like, hey, go watch this. Hey, check this out. And then we'll meet again on set date. And maybe we'll do a little more coaching then. So if you haven't already looked at Rachel's website, definitely check that out, because she's got some wonderful free resources, including that one there.
Yeah. And so I also have a lot of video content on YouTube, and that was kind of born because I felt like some things I just was explaining over and over again. And so I was like, well, how do I automate this? I think that it's really great. The key, I think, with any type of teaching is to not overwhelm whoever you're teaching. And this, like, I had to learn the hard way. I am super passionate, and I just feel like I word vomit so many things about AAC all at once. And that can be really overwhelming. And so I think if you have the opportunity to do little bite-sized chunks over time, that is way more beneficial to whoever it is that you're teaching. And that's how I learn best too. I feel like it's just sometimes we get super eager and excited and we're trying to teach all these things. And I realize that there's, barriers with time, and people don't have enough time, and they have a lot of kids on their caseload, and they have a lot of kind of responsibilities. But I think that the bite-sized chunks are really helpful. And I think figuring out, like, I make a decision, like, what can I automate here? And what do I need to actually tailor to the specific student? Thinking through it, I think, makes a lot of sense too, because there are some things that can be taught through videos and resources and things like that, which is why I kind of created those YouTube videos to begin with.
Yeah. And I think they say you can only take away 3 things from a training. And so we have these full day trainings or 2-day trainings or a whole week where you're going to a conference and you can only take away 3 things.
Exactly.
And so I think it's so important to start to chunk it. And you talked about Jill Center and Matt Bod have that great coaching modeling program that we can tap into, where we're coaching and giving that feedback. So I would say anybody that's listening throughout the district, if you feel like you need that, if you feel like you want coaching, definitely reach out to your AAC facilitator, because we can set up that framework, and we can help support you through that. Like Rachel said, because it's so crucial. So I just have one final question for you, Rachel. Anybody that comes on our podcast, we always ask this, and it doesn't have to be related to collaboration in the school, but I would just love to know your favorite AAC moment thus far. If you have one related to collaboration, that'd be great. But in general, what is your favorite moment?
So, really great question. I was asked to contribute a chapter in a book. The book is called Becoming an Exceptional SLP Leader, which I was so grateful that I was even asked to write a chapter in that book. But I, spent all summer kind of reflecting back and thinking about all the stories that I could potentially share. And obviously I have a passion and expertise in AAC. And so I'm going to share a story that I actually shared in my book chapter. So I'm very passionate about, of course, like making a bigger impact in the AAC world, teaching as many people as I can. That's why we started the podcast. That's why I started a YouTube channel. And that all kind of spurred from a service trip I did abroad. So I worked with an organization in Cambodia, and I went there. In Cambodia, there's a high incidence of people, not just kids, but people who need a speech language pathologist, and they don't have speech language pathology in the country. So this organization is working to bring speech therapy to the country of Cambodia. So I found this out. It was so random. I was like reading the news and saw this organization. I was like, wow, I was like, that's amazing. Long story short, I reached out. I ended up coordinating a training. I went there for, I think I was there for a week, working within their organization, training their staff, other SLPs to be on AAC visual supports, working, with families. And when I went, I had brought, I think, 4 or 5 iPads. So whenever I do a service trip abroad, I try to get the families that I work with and lots of other people to donate iPads so that I can, come with some high-tech speech generating devices. So I did that with this organization, and I told the director, listen, you need to think about, the 5 students that you work with who you think would be the best candidates for high-tech AAC. I'll bring the devices, I'll do the assessments, I'll teach you how to use it, but, figure out who would be a good candidate. And her immediate response was, oh my gosh, I know the perfect student. And so I was like, okay, great. This family traveled 4 hours to Phnom Penh, which is the capital of Cambodia, to get to be assessed. And it was crazy because this student was 17 years old. He had some verbal speech in English and Khmer, which is the native language in Cambodia. And I was working through an interpreter at some level, but he actually had quite a bit of English, probably because he was getting speech therapy in English, because a lot of they brought in a lot of SLPs from different parts of the world, most of them English speaking. So anyway, he was very shy at first, autistic, shy, had his head down, but slowly started opening up to me. And he just had kind of single words. And I started using high-tech device with him, started showing him how to build a sentence. And within literally 15 minutes, this kid was building sentences. People, the whole room was shocked. I can't believe he knows. He was spelling. He was using a keyboard to spell. And so it was a really powerful experience. I'll never forget. I held up a picture. It was like this duck in this pond. It was super random, but I held it up. We were working on looking at pictures and building sentences. And I held it up, and he said, duck, jump at water. or something like that. And I was like floored, because it's like, the one thing, of course it was really powerful, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did this. But like, what broke my heart is that he had to wait, his whole life to get access to a technology. Like, where would he be now if he had access to communication? And so it's a really powerful story. Like I said, it spurred everything that I did. I went home. Well, I finished kind of my trip. I ended up doing some traveling throughout Cambodia, went to some amazing places. And then, all the while kind of reflecting on what happened, and there were lots of stories I could have shared with that experience, because there were lots of families similar to that, got access to technology. Their, child started communicating. That one was super powerful, because I was like, wow, like, who knew this child had, or this man had so much language, had all these literacy skills. It was the technology that really revealed that to us. So anyway, that experience really made me think, how can I make an impact? Like, how can I have a gift of, knowledge about AAC. Like, what can I do to share that, to spread that? And so my YouTube channel was born. I started creating video content, and that led to being asked to do a podcast about AAC. And then the podcast has grown like exponentially over the years. And so anyway, it's a really powerful story, for me personally, because I feel like it really changed my trajectory. But I also think it's just crazy to think about, how many kids out there just need access to the right technology in order to really reach their full potential. I think it's a really important reminder to think about. And so when I hear clinicians or teachers or even parents sometimes saying they're not ready, I'm like, listen, like, they were born ready. Like, give them the device, teach them how to use it, stop limiting a child's potential. And so it really has changed kind of the trajectory of my career in a lot of ways. And it started with that experience in Cambodia.
Oh my gosh. So I got goosebumps like 5 times while you were telling that story. I just absolutely love it, because I'm seeing this vision of like this kid locked in a room and being able to try to get out of this door. And the only way they can get out is the key. And you totally gave them the key. I love that.
Oh, I just got goosebumps too. Goosebumps all around.
Yeah. So, that's great. So I know that you have your website, you have your YouTube channel. There's Always Talking with Tech. Thank you so much for just kind of coming on today and talking through collaboration. I think, the big message is just presume potential, really try to think creatively and how you can use a team approach with different providers. Don't give up, know that it's there, keep going, reach out to the facilitators as you need us. And if they have extra questions, or if they can't get an answer from one of us facilitators, Rachel, is there a great contact for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can follow me on social media. I do a lot of stuff on there at Rachel Madel SLP. Also, you can find all my contact information on my website, which is just rachelmadel.com. I get a lot of messages, and I'm totally fine, because I always think about it this way. Like, it's not like these people who reach out to me are like, I'm trying to lose 30 pounds in 30 days, right? It's like these people feel so passionate about the students that they're working with, and they feel like they've hit such a roadblock that they decide on their free time to write me a 10-paragraph email. I'm like, I have to answer. I have to respond. And inevitably, I typically will do a Loom. I'll send a Loom, and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you sent me a video. So anyway, feel free to email me. I can try to help as much as I can, or lead you in the right direction to one of the trainings that I've done, or one of the videos that I have, or a podcast episode. But yeah, I'm happy to help out, because I'm just really passionate about helping people, learn more about AAC, feel less overwhelmed by it. And so many people in our field are just doing such amazing work and have such big hearts. And it's like, that's really, that's why we do it, right? It's like, we really are making such an impact with the students that we serve. And so, if there's any way that I can help support that, I'm in. So contact me any way you want to. Just know that it might take me a little bit of time to get back to you, but I eventually will get back to you.
Awesome. We won't think that you're surfing out there in Hawaii. We'll know you're busy.
Exactly. I'm busy sending Looms to everybody who sends me emails.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. We really appreciate having you on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Hi guys, it's Laura, and I just wanted to quickly show you this wonderful collaborative form that you can use when communicating with outside therapists or outside providers in general. And it's called the Communication Collaboration Electronic Therapy Form. It was created by myself and a few therapists from Mercy back in 2019, pre-COVID. And the whole idea is that you are communicating both progress and goals for both the therapy side as well as the school side. And so it gives a quick little bubble about reminders, and then a spot for your student's name, as well as a box below that identifies the primary team members that would be in contact for the student, the device the student is using, what they prefer to talk about, the things they like to do and play, their interests, and then their goals. And again, these goals were probably going to be different for therapy as well as for the school setting. So it just kind of gives more concrete information that the team can use to collaborate on a regular basis. It's encouraged that this is filled out quarterly, but at least at every beginning and end of the school year, so that you can have an update for the student as they are progressing for the next calendar year for school, as well as for the summer for the therapists. We will put this on the website under therapy resources under implementation and put it in the show notes. If you have any questions, reach out.
Hi, everyone. It's Cheryl Livingston. Let's take a few minutes to look at some resources that are available for you on our AAC site. So during the beginning of COVID, we started doing a lot of gathering of materials and creating materials for you to have access to them so you could support students virtually. Well, most of us are back, but that doesn't mean you can't still use these materials. So it may be something that you've saw and forgot, or you've never been there. I want to make sure you think about going there and checking it out. Tons of stuff, and it's quick, easy, download it, go, do whatever you need to do. All kinds of students as far as ages, interest, systems, and even if they're not on a system as far as an AAC device, you could still use them for promoting a lot of opportunities for communication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go to our AAC site, and just again, address wise, it's up here at the top. It's sites.google.com/ssdmo.org/AAC-site, SITE /home. If you're getting emails from an outcome facilitator around their signature area at the bottom of the email, there's also links to this. So it's easy for you to get to it. If not, let us know. I'm going to go across the top here. I'm going to go to the one that says implementation, learning resources. Again, there's all kinds of things. There's word of the week that you could take advantage of. I'm going to click on virtual AAC teletherapy resources. But again, that's how we started all this, but it's not anything that you couldn't do in person. You can put it on a smartboard, you can put it on your computer, you can put it on iPads and things like that. But you can also print, you can also, just find ways that you can engage your students. And this would also be very appropriate. Check out our AAC activity repository. And here's tons of folders. So lots of literacy, lots of just fun activity things that you'll find available. I'm going to go all the way down here to virtual field trips. When it opens up, there's different places that we can explore. So again, you can't just pack up your kids easily and take them to Walmart or to Shaw's Gardens or have a picnic in the park, but we can explore it via the computer. So I'm going to click on going to Walmart. All kinds of new things are here. I'm going to click on free life skills file folder. So this is something we found on the internet and we uploaded it to our site. So what you do is you scroll down and there's some directions, but what I really like is, again, easy to make a file folder. Here's some money we could spend. Here's, different activities that were places we might go, things we might buy. Okay. So that's available. I'm going to go to the grocery, make a grocery list. So even if we're not doing CBI, and again, I hope we will be soon. Let's pretend, let's set it up as a classroom activity that you could have things that you might buy off the shelf of your store in your classroom. So it's making grocery list. But then let's say we're going to go to Walmart. So in this particular example, we have both the symbol support for ProLocal to Go and for Snap Core First. So I'm going to click on P to Go. And this is a Google Slides. And as we're going through these, looks like it's still loading. Here it comes. I'm going to present so you can see it a little bit better. We have the symbols for each of the slides. So if we're going shopping, move myself back over here, we go. And then I click, and then we get to like, well, here's the store layout. Where do you want to go? Well, let's come over here to the garden center. And now we can talk about things in the garden center. And then different, again, symbols that you can match to their devices. If I go back to the home, we can check another area. Okay. So all kinds of opportunities, communication opportunities that you'll find very helpful. Now I'm going to go back to, I'll close out my slide. Again, there's some symbols here that you could use, just talking about the story and talking about things that you might see. I'm going to go back to our site, go back to the activity repository. And now I'm going to talk more about a literacy activity. So we have all age books for all ages is what I'm trying to say. But one that's kind of in the middle here is Flat Stanley. It's a good series of books. And this is the first one in the series is what was highlighted that you might find helpful for, talking about adventures and things, places you might go. So if you don't have the book, you can always go to YouTube and there's people reading it out loud and you could use it that way. But then I also saved all kinds of links to sites. So Flat Stanley has his own site that you could take advantage of and maybe encourage kids to create a Flat Stanley of their own to take different places and to take pictures. But also we could talk about core words. Well, here's 5 of the different core words that come up a lot in the story. And as you scroll down, then here's the symbol supports for the different systems, whether you're using word power on touch chat, if you're using LAMP words for life, if you're using a core board, core first. So I want to, show you that that's there waiting for you. Then there's also communication boards. So the main core board that goes in, and then words that go with the story are there. And then some more vocabulary that you might use. And then this activity, the idea was to manipulate kind of different rooms of your house and where Flat Stanley might go. So again, it's a Google Slides. So if we present, then there's different rooms. And I was thinking at one point, Stanley was moving around here, but he's not moving today. But anyway, we could talk about where he could go. So easy, quick, fun things. And I'm also going to go then back to all the folders that are available. Go back here, distance learning activities. And if you have older students, there's a book club that PRC put together last year. So this is the planner. This is all the different stories that they have materials to support. So again, it's not letting me scroll down because it's a big one. But there was one of the books was Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library. So there's supports for that as well. So I want to encourage you to expand how in-depth you can get and how much, again, communication you can promote. So all of our students, not just the ones that are being supported by AAC or that, these civil supports are helpful. Any student would benefit from a chance to have the visuals that go along with the story and ways that they can interact with it. On Tar Heel Reader, they have, for that particular book and all the books in that PRC book club, they have already put together some little segments of the story. So it's simplified, but it's also then with some visuals. And the actual movie that they made from this book is also available. And there's a link to that on YouTube. So all kinds of stuff. I really, really hope that you'll find some time and you can just sit and explore, because it'll hopefully be a big help. And we appreciate the fact that you are supporting your students, and we want to help in any way we can. Oh my, Laura, you did a great job, because I'm thinking Rachel has had, what she said, 4 years of doing the podcast, and she was definitely answering all of your questions in such a sincere way. And I felt, again, I've listened to her for hundreds of hours, but this was something that definitely applied to us. And I really appreciated the fact that you asked and you were able to kind of delve deep into some of those things that we know all of us are wondering about or would love to do a better job. So it was good.
I think the part that, I talked about my goosebumps, right? But the part that really hits home is the why. Why do we do the things that we do? And her story about the individual that drove, I think it was, again, 4 hours to come and see her and get assessed and get a communication device, really nails, I got goosebumps again. It nails home why we do this, right? We want to give kids a voice, because it's in my opinion, communication is the love. It's my love language, but it's how we communicate with the world. It opens our eyes, it opens our hearts, and we need to give kids voices. So
and I thought that situation was he figured all this stuff out. He knew all kinds of information without anybody really expecting him to. And I just, again, don't sell your kids short. Don't underestimate what they're capable of. And the other thing was, they had to really pursue, getting a system. So I think sometimes we have a tendency to take it for granted because it's available to all of us. And we're just like, oh yeah, well, and it's like, no, it means a lot, and it needs to be held to a high esteem of importance. So that was something that I thought was really cool.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoyed this first episode of season 2, Innovative AAC Solutions. We hope you enjoyed the resources. If you have questions, reach out. We will see you next week for Innovative AAC Solutions. I'm Laura Hayes.
And I'm Cheryl Livingston, and it's so good to see you guys again.